Yeah.
If that's okay with you.
Hair. Yes, I got a hair restoration surgery for my birthday 2 years ago. And I got it because one, I've been on YouTube for a while, right? I remember my story, how I got divorced, I had no friends, so I started reviewing movies. I didn't like what I was looking at in the video because I just noticed it started really going back. And I filmed a video with my girlfriend. We were doing like a Evil Dead reaction video because she had never seen Evil Dead. You seen those movies, Evil Dead?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. So let me see if I can find the picture real quick. And there she is. She's looking all super hot. And I lit the room dark and red. And I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be great. And I saw the video and my hair was worse than what I had thought. And I'm like, okay, I'm 44. I might as well at this point shave it. Just own it.
Yeah.
She was like, no, keep it. Let's look into some options. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? Because I didn't want to record videos anymore. I didn't want to show my face because my confidence was hit. So I went and got a surgery. It cost $8,000. And I will recommend it to anybody, but do your research because you can see it's still thin
but it looks natural.
Yes.
I mean, I've seen some where it looks like doll hair. You can see the very defined line and you can just tell something's up. Honestly, I would never have suspected.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Looks natural. Looks very natural.
Thank you. And the reason I went and got a consultation because just like you, like, hey, I've seen guys get this and they look horrible. It looks horribly fake. And they go, well, back in the early 2000s when this started, they used to plug 3 hairs per root. So that's why it gave it the doll look. So now they plug it per strand. And the thicker hairs go in the back and the thinner ones go in the front. They grade them like with the system 1 through 5. 5 being real thick,
very
1 being
scientific
thin.
with it, yeah.
So it's thinner and it looks natural. So I'm like, okay, if it looks natural, then I'll do it. I think I want to go again because I want it thicker up front. I just want it thicker just for my confidence and my money's worth. Side effects, by the way, just so you know, even though you get the surgery, you still have to take Rogaine or do Rogaine, right?
Really?
Yep. Because it's still your testosterone is what
the DHT and the okay, gotcha. So
and they
your body's still naturally trying to lose its hair.
Yeah.
And it will
can't fight nature, right?
Yeah.
And they prescribe Finasteride. And this is where I read about it.
Oh, yeah, that's a very hormonally impactful drug. Yeah.
Get this. I'll share this with you. So yes, they said take it once a day, and I read all this horror stories where guys said they killed their sex drive, and I'm like, no, I'll fight it because I have a hot girlfriend, right? A month into it, sex was not on my mind whatsoever.
Wow, interesting.
I was like, what the fuck's wrong with me? I have a beautiful girlfriend right here. What's going on with me? I didn't wake up with morning wood anymore, and I'm like, this is not me. I know I'm older, but no, I have morning wood. What's going on? So I started just feeling not like myself. And I went and got the test. I go, you hardly have any testosterone because you're taking these pills. Yeah. So what's more important, your sex drive and feeling like you or your hair? Like, fuck. No, they don't tell you that. Yeah. And I actually started microdosing. So instead of every day, I take 1 pill a week. And I started feeling like myself again. I started waking up with the morning wood. I started having that, as I call it, the eye of the tiger at the gym. And I was just ready to attack the gym and the weights. And then I got my girlfriend pregnant. So
that's perfect. Yeah, I posted a video, and this is something I hear every now and then from guys. It's really sad. The ones that are in the dead bedroom situations, they say, "How can I lower my my libido because I feel it's out of control and I'm not getting anything. I just feel terrible and my eyes wandering too much." Some of them, go to prostitutes and all that stuff. So I want to squash this. And a lot of them hear from their doctor, well, there's this hair drug, what's the proper pronunciation? Finasteride?
Finasteride.
Yeah, Finasteride. That's been known to cut down on the libido, and you stop your hair from falling out. So I've heard some men going down that direction purposefully. As sad as that is. As sad as that is, yeah.
Yeah, don't do that, man. Fix the bedroom because I was really scared. I thought I was at that age, like, well, I guess I'm like, there's no more venom in the snake no more. I was like, had this depression. I gained weight. I was all upset about myself, and then I finally did more research. And like, that's what it is. And now I'm back. So yeah. Yeah, I got to do a video on that itself just to kind of let men know. But
there you go.
Mr. Ralph DSO, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. And again, thank you for having me on your show, a couple months back?
Has it been that long now? Yeah, it was a popular episode.
Yeah.
I cut it up into clips, and some of those clips went semi-viral, 100,000 or so, views. So yeah.
I'd
Facebook,
say that's
TikTok.
viral.
Yeah. Doing well. Yeah. I had one. I followed in your footsteps. I had one that hit 4.4 million or something like that. So I consider that one like, oh, holy shit. For me, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and you've had a substantial growth since then. I mean, I think last time when I first encountered you, and for those who don't know, I met DSO here on TikTok because we more or less talk about the same topics, and we're going to talk about divorce in today's podcast. And I think you had maybe 17, maybe 20,000, and now you're almost at 100,000 now, right?
80-some thousand, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Well, congratulations. And
Thank
for
you.
Those who don't know who you are and what you do, give everybody a quick summary on who DSO is.
Yeah, well, you can call me Ralph if you want. It's more, natural than DSO. But DSO stands for Dad Starting Over, which is the name of my website / business. And it started off as a blog, and that evolved into coaching one-on-one with myself. I wrote books. One of my books became pretty popular, and it's called The Dead Bedroom Fix. And it's all my thoughts on men that are in sexless marriages, relationships, and what to do about it. And that got a lot of people to my website, which in turn allowed me to create a members-only group and hire more coaches. And we have the members-only group has all kinds of benefits within that we can talk about. But it's been now for, how long's it been now? It's been that I've been doing this like 8 years or so now. Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. And don't be modest, my friend, because everybody who's listening to this, Mr. DSO, Ralph here is an inspiration to me. And he's kind of the fire I needed to kind of evolve in what I'm doing here and started writing books. Because you're an author of 4 books. I have it here. Divorce Panic, No Bullshit Life Advice for Young Men, The Dead Bedroom, as you mentioned, and Red Flags. So again,
Dead Bedroom Fix, Red Flags. Is that all? Yeah, I guess so. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then you also built a fraternity. So talk about that, because I know men, we've been there. Divorce sucks, obviously, and a lot of us go through it alone. So tell us about the DSO fraternity.
Well, the genesis of that was twofold. One was a selfish reason, which was, boy, I have a lot of eyeballs on my website and on my social media right now. How can I take advantage of this? Book sales is great, but that's, buy one, then they're gone. So I need to figure out some kind of way to make a residual income, some kind of regular monthly thing. And well, that's saying that is one thing, but what can I offer men that would allow them to spend X amount of dollars every month? It's got to be something of value. And so, well, what is it that I need as a man? I'm a pretty good example of your average dude, divorced and whatever. And so what is it that I was lacking at this stage of my life? It was contact with other men. And that's something that I've learned is very common amongst dudes. We just don't interact with guys. We're not as very social. We're so busy with the kids and the house and work and everything else that, well, especially for guys in our shoes that have been divorced, cheated on, whatever it may be, we really have a lot of shit to talk about. And we really have nobody to talk to about it with. When you're going to go to your buddy who's happily married and everything else, he'll just sit across wide-eyed and go, and sip his beer and go, well, dude, it's nice talking to you. He's very uncomfortable about talking about, well, my wife cheated on me. I mean, I've had those conversations where the guys go, yeah. I had one friend actually text me and said that he actually Googled what to say to your friend when he says he was cheated on, because he had no idea how to approach this. He was very uncomfortable, but he wanted to be supportive. And so that's what I had to deal with. So let's start a group where guys can get together online and talk privately. We don't have to worry about the world seeing what we're saying. How about if we got on live meetings together and chatted via Zoom, face to face, so to speak, and talked about things? Right. What if we had guys to talk to one-on-one? You could pay them for their time, guys that have been there and done that. Yeah. And what if we had like a private member podcast and articles and all kinds? And what if we met actually in person and got together for little conferences? And that is what we call the DSO Fraternity. And if anybody's interested in joining it, you can go to dsofraternity.com or go to my website at dadstartingover.com, get you to the same place. And it costs only $14.99 a month. If you want to pay for the whole year up front, $149. If you're sold on it and you're like, I want to do this for years, get the lifetime for $349.
Yeah.
That's all it costs. It's not an arm and a leg. relatively cheap for what you get. And we have, as far as the live meetings, as far as what's popular in the group, the online discussion groups are very popular. They're 24/7. We have guys from Australia, the US, all over the place. So if you go in any time of the day, there's guys talking about stuff on there. Extremely popular. The next most popular thing are the Zoom meetings, which we have now. It's like 4 or 5 every single week, hosted by the coaches on a variety of different topics. So we record them all. Yeah. So you can listen to all the recordings. So if you're on a road trip, you got a big 12-hour road trip, you will not run out of meetings to listen to it, because we have like 400 hours of meetings recorded that you can listen to, all from your podcast app. So it's pretty cool.
That's inspiring, man. Like I said, I'm evolving my content and what I want to do and just kind of spread my knowledge, just like you. So the fact that you're doing this. No, I totally mean that. I give credit where credit's due. And I even talked to my girlfriend after the podcast I was on. You know what, Ralph? He's got me thinking, why am I not evolving here? I mean, I am, because, sitting on something great.
Not to inflate your ego too much here, but I'm good about one thing, and that is recognizing greatness, or when somebody's got it, that whatever that it is, and you got it, whatever that it is, because you have that personality, you got the look, you got the everything. You're comfortable on the microphone, you're comfortable on the camera, and you've put out content, and the world said, we like it, and they viewed the hell out of it. You got everything is checked. You just need to take that next step of, what am I going to do with this? Make a legitimate business out of this and help people in the process. Isn't that a cool idea?
Yeah. And there's no greater feeling being a content creator and putting something out there and like, oh, it's actually helping improve lives. It's actually save lives in some cases. It's a feeling that I never want to let go, and definitely want to stick to it. But again, it's anyone out there listening, if you have a story and you're scared or maybe nervous about putting it out there, put it out there. You never know what could happen. I would never be talking to Ralph here. We would have never met if we didn't just put our stories out there.
That's right.
And use our divorces, which is, again, one of the most horrible events anybody can go through, and evolve into better men and helping others. It's a wonderful feeling. So, take a chance sometimes. You never know.
But there's a negative, isn't there? Which is you put yourself out there.
Oh my God.
You're going to piss a whole bunch of people off. And there's going to be people that are really going to put you to the test. And there's been days where I go, what the fuck am I doing? Do I really want to do this? Because I just got 100 nasty emails in a row from people. All because I said something that I thought was pretty innocuous and pretty nothing throwaway comment, but people latch onto it. I did a video on how it's interesting how people can say a lot of negative things about men in general, such as, we tend to be the murderers and psychopaths and serial killers and rapists and child molesters, all really bad, horrible stuff. And we say, most of the time that's dudes. And then I say something as innocuous or something that I consider as throwaway as, in couples, who tends to be the most, quote, neurotic between the two? Well, it tends to be the woman. And neurotic is a personality trait, which means a propensity for negative thought. Who tends to be the most neurotic? Well, it's the woman. Oh my God. Comments, emails, burn in hell, die. I can't believe you said that. I'm like, well, you just kind of illustrated the point.
Yeah. But there's a data right there. You just proved my point. Yeah. It's that's one truth. At one point, I think I told you this, there's a video clip that somebody stitched of me and took my story out of context and labeled me this guy who cheated on his wife, which I did, and I've told that story, but she wasn't pregnant, and she wasn't alone with, unemployed and like riddled with cancer, whatever people have told me. And I had like 9 million women hate me. So I think that was pretty hard, especially when that wave came the week of my dad passed. So that was the universe doesn't give a damn about you.
Piles it on, doesn't it? Yeah. When it rains and pours. Yeah,
it does. But you eventually learn not to take anything personal, because everyone has their own lens of truth and experience.
Exactly.
You can't deny that or tell them they're wrong.
Know the prejudice that they bring, all their past experience they bring to the table. I've posted something and then somebody says, oh yeah, well what about, and they will list the most detailed, horrible story. I'm like, what does that have to do with anything? And then you realize this person's going through some shit right now and they just got to let it out. And for whatever reason, I pushed a button. That's not on me. Whatever, that's fine. Just let it go.
Yeah. And unfortunately, like, again, the topics we touch on, dead bedrooms, divorce, that's all very personal and sensitive to many people. And that's kind of what I want to touch on. You said divorce, right? So divorce brought you into this space. So tell me about that.
Yeah. Well, about a decade ago now, don't want to go into too much detail simply because been there, done that. Things have improved a great deal over the past, 5-6 years or so. But about a decade ago, I was in hell. because I was married. I had a 1-year-old, I had a 6-year-old, and a 9-year-old, just turned 9. And I was on vacation with my family, and I discovered that my then wife was having an affair.
Oh,
One of those things where this is so common. I've heard this a million times. Got logged into the computer, a laptop that we shared, opened up Facebook. Oh, look, she's on Facebook. And oh, look, she got a message on the messenger. And I clicked it. I don't know why I clicked it, but I did. Maybe some, God, the universe saying, dude, you need to check this out. I never suspected a thing ever. Clicked it. I saw the tail end of a conversation that she had failed to delete. The rest is history. Yeah. And part of it wasn't just so much of, boom, I got busted. I guess we're getting a divorce now. Let's make this amicable. It didn't go that easy. It was the tip of an iceberg of several years of behavior on her part that was very alarming, scary. She very much regressed into a teenage, type of state, very rebellious. And part of that was ignoring the children. So I had to take on that responsibility. And I had a 1.5-year-old in diapers. And it was just, so it was several years of that, of awfulness. And my daughter went through hell. The poor thing was, pre-pubertal. And then I got to see the puberty hit, and then all the hormonal rush and all the stress of everything else, and the mom and and she had a hard time with anxiety and all kinds of awfulness.
Yeah. Oh my God.
It was terrible. And in the middle of this, I was this manic, crazy dude dating and trying to, make myself feel better with what I call these human Band-Aids called women. That'll make me feel better, right? And the energy I was putting out was a little nutty, crazy. I was looking better because of all this anxiety-driven weight loss and everything else.
Nothing like depression and weight loss to make you lose 20 pounds, right?
That's right. And so I was getting attention from women. And at one point, when I actually met my now wife, I had 7 different women on my phone that I was in contact with. So there I was, Mr. Casanova, feeling like and you can relate, right? You've been there, done.
Oh yeah, 7, yeah.
But we can set aside for another topic or another chat or later in this chat. That is not the case for a lot of men, I've learned. A lot of men are like, I haven't gotten jack shit in years now, but that wasn't my case. For whatever reason, my mindset certainly wasn't my looks, but my mindset or whatever was that I was getting a lot of attention, and it felt amazing. So we had dads dating. The kids didn't know about it or anything, but dad eventually met his now wife. We really hit it off. So it's a lot going on. It was pretty nutty. Yeah. And so that's what I was writing about. Wow. And my writings really didn't get a whole hell of a lot of attention until I talked about sex and marriage. That was when, in my experience in marriage number 1, and how it was so different, and what I'm hearing from all these guys online, and here are my thoughts on it. And that's what got me the most attention, because that is the most acute pain point for men is, wow, I'm just not getting any in the relationship. And we talked about that in my podcast, and you can certainly relate to that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I want to go back, and I know you don't want to go into detail, but I was looking at your YouTube channel. By the way, I'm going to steal this idea. Not that it's an original idea, but I saw your highest performing video with 7 signs your wife is cheating. I have some signs on my own, but for the young men that are out there, like you said, in your experience, you just totally T-boned you. You did not see it coming. Yeah. Totally surprised. So for the young men out there who are married and think their marriage is great, what are some signs they can look out for, just for FYI, just in case something like this can happen to them?
Well, it was, I was totally blindsided, yet hindsight being what it is, you go,
it makes sense. Yeah.
That's why she did that thing. And that's why she said that. So what are some of those things I saw? There was gaps in time, which didn't make sense. So for example, I'm going to a concert in a neighboring city with my friends and blah, blah, blah. And she'd be out of pocket and out of contact for hours, and she's got a husband and 3 kids at home. Why not just, hey, everything's going good, everything having fun. But, 3-4 hours of no contact and a text here and there. Everything okay? Crickets. Doing all right? Crickets. And then all of a sudden, I'll be back around midnight and she doesn't show up till 2. Something doesn't add up. Well, dumb, stupid me at the time was just like, oh, well, she was out having fun. It is what it is. So, stack a half dozen of those kind of moments together, and there's something going on there. Right. Because it's difficult as a parent of so many children and with a career and everything to shoehorn an affair in there somewhere. So you gotta make time there somewhere. So
it's amazing how they find the time. It's amazing how they find the time.
It's amazing. Yeah. That's why I always kind of sigh and roll my eyes when I'm talking to a man and the coaching, and he will give me every sign in the world that his wife her attention is somewhere else. And he'll be just immediately go, nope, nope, not my wife. No. I said, why are you so sure? Well, I know my wife, number one, she would never do that. She's always been very adamantly anti-cheating. I said, yeah, mine too, but go on. And then he said, and the most obvious is logistically, she has no time for that. She works and the kids and there's 0 minutes in the day. I'm like, there's always time. There's always time. Oh, yeah. Whether it's that lunch break that you're not there for, or she goes to the gym or whatever, there's always time.
The PTO that she took that day. There's so many days. Yeah.
And now I guess a more general thing, we can talk about little behavior points of what people do. And there's always excuses for that. This little bit of behavior doesn't necessarily point to cheating, such as being gone for an extended period of time. It could be she just needs time away from the kids. She needs to decompress. Right. She needs whatever. It doesn't necessarily mean she's doing the hokey pokey with some dude. More in a more broad sense, what are some things to look out for? I hear so often of the wife's background is pretty toxic. The wife's childhood has a lot of bad things going on. She has a very difficult time coping. She brings all this red flags and baggage to the relationship, and the affair is basically a means of coping. And sometimes it goes hand in hand with overspending. That's very common. I hear that. I've just discovered my wife has a $50,000 credit card thing. I had no idea. Yeah. It could be overeating. My wife's gained a ton of weight and all these kind of things. The affair just goes along with that. I'm having a very difficult time coping with the normal, banal nature of boring marriage. And I'm 40 years old. I'm not getting any younger. And it's just powder keg of issues. And it just kaboom explodes. So in hindsight, you look back and go, man, I kind of saw this coming for the past 5 or so years of boom, boom, boom. And I can relate to that. It was just this perfect storm of issues just all piled on. And then finally she exploded. So be on the lookout for that kind of stuff. And it sounds kind of boilerplate generic, but communication is very important within a couple. And I compare my relationship now to what was then in the old relationship. And we're so hyper communicative, my wife and I, that boy, I'm not saying it's not possible, but man, that would surprise the hell out of me considering how much we're so open about everything. What little thought is going in her head. If it's something that's veering towards a negative, we talk it out. Never did that in relationship number 1 at all.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Same with me. Like we couldn't communicate. We're waiting to talk and just talking over ourselves. And with the relationship now, it's definitely healthy, the most healthy relationship I've ever had.
But I'll tell you, you and I are so similar in one regard. Not to interrupt, but you just had a child. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And how's mom and baby doing, by the way? I forgot to ask.
Oh, they're doing great. Good. Max is going on 2 months now, and
Max, I have a Max too.
Awesome. Maximilian is his full name. Maximilian.
Very cool.
And he's wonderful, and mom's doing great. She's still herself. We're just exhausted. Like this past weekend, we all got sick, and we didn't get COVID, but we were all sick. So imagine having like a sinus headache with a baby crying and it's 3 in the morning, and I'm just like, oh my God, but you get through it. But they're doing wonderfully. Thank you for asking.
Well, good. Well, I have an 18-month-old with my second wife. And to say that the introduction of the new little one changes the dynamic between the two of you is an understatement. You go from this prolonged honeymoon stage of these two adults and your non-kid time. Like you give the kids to mom and you two go out and just paint the town red and you go on a little weekend trip together and all that kind of stuff. And that changes dramatically once you're like, whoops, we got a new little one to take care of now. So got to be cognizant of that. And that's where the hyper communicative thing really, is put to use. So you have to stay connected.
You do. You definitely do. There were some signs I remember, not with my direct marriage, but there were some signs I saw other men tell me about. And it's funny you mentioned you had a 6-year-old, and the wife started acting reckless. This one particular case I knew, it was about their kids were 7 or 8. They were kind of dependent in a sense, were independent where they can just kind of move around, do their own thing. The mom lost a lot of weight. So now she's wearing clothes that she hasn't worn in years, and she's feeling sexy. She's feeling, like herself again. So she starts to get attention.
Sure.
And if you notice your wife, like if she went to work in a polo shirt and her hair back and hardly any makeup, then all of a sudden she's wearing thongs and she's dressing really nice and putting a lot of effort in her appearance, that's a kind of a red flag. Now, it doesn't mean that she can't have confidence, right? Everyone, you lose weight, you feel good about yourself, but If she starts dressing up and putting more effort into herself, that's kind of like something, okay, what's going on? Especially if you have a dead bedroom situation.
Yes.
We talked about making time. I knew of people that would, go to lunch and go to somebody's house and just knock out a quickie in their living room and then just come back. Or, the kids, especially, I call it cheating season. When kids go back to school, now you have a home for 8 hours to yourself. So you can just say you're working, just take the day off and just meet at somebody's house and do it. So there's so many ways. And, I did some of those back in my day when I was a cheating husband, but there's a lot of signs out there, and especially the dead bedroom. If all of a sudden she's kissing differently or wanting to do other things that you've been wanting to do for years, and now all of a sudden she's kind of like more frisky, that's another item to look for as well. But
sure.
Yeah. But
there's been plenty of men that I've talked to who have, I talked to them and then they'll report, I have good news. All of a sudden, I don't know what it is, but my wife has just turned into a new human being. And she wanted to do this and she wanted to do that. And I think what you're telling me is having some benefit here. And I go, hold on there, Tiger. Because this sudden switch flip like that, that didn't come out of nowhere. Something has pushed her buttons. Maybe it's you. Maybe it's a scenario. Let's talk it through. And I tell you what, I don't want to say most of the time, but a lot of the time it's like, something's up here. Something else has pushed the button, and it ain't you, and it ain't the kids, and it ain't your family and everything. There's some outside influence there. Yeah. Now, I will caution people, though. You see this self-improvement in your partner, and it does tap into some insecurities, especially if you've been this blob, nothing dude for, a decade or more. Right. And you both have been this mutual blobness together, and then suddenly one of you, the other one becomes this newly attractive person. That really taps into your insecurities. And I always tell people, your response better be, I'm joining you, sweetie. What are we going? Going to the gym? Let's put the kids in the daycare. Let's get a babysitter. Let's go, go, go. Don't be the person that's just like, do what you got to do, whatever. That's not me. I'll be here on the couch waiting on you. If there's one very sad but completely realistic point that I've learned over the years of talking to dudes is that a couple with mismatched attraction levels like that is not sustainable at all.
I agree. Oh my God. Yes. Yes.
On either side. You got your woman who's super hot and whatever. I've had a couple of guys who their wife is literally a fitness model. Oh my God. He's like 100+ pounds overweight. And he just cannot believe that she would wander or that she would want to get attention from. I'm like, dude, do you realize the tens of thousands of men, maybe even on a daily basis, that reach out to this woman and say, you're hot, you're pretty, give me your number. What do they say? Slide into your DMs or whatever. And that's just on the internet, not to mention the guys at work, not to, the guys at the gym. And she comes home to you. And you're like sitting there on the couch burping or whatever, and you're just exhausted because you work 60 hours a week. And I get it, but you got to snap to attention. That can't last very long. Same thing for I had a dude that I was talking to, a coaching client who was very well-to-do, and he had been a chubby dude his whole life. And then he gets my book, and that kind of lit a fire under his ass. And he's losing a lot of weight, and he's hitting the gym, and he's dressing better in the whole 9 yards. And I say, be careful, dude. I say, you're this guy who's never really gotten attention, and you're wealthy, and now all of a sudden you're saying, here I am, world. Don't be surprised if the women come knocking. He's like, well, I'm not like that. That's not me. Nothing to worry about. 30 days later. 30 days later, he's in an emotional affair with some 20-some-year-old who slid into his DMs and said, hello, handsome. And he's like, attention from, I've never talked to a woman like this. And away they go. So none of us are immune to this necessarily. He didn't have those boundaries and that mechanism to keep that away. And he was put to the test and he caved like that. Yeah.
Especially if we've never got the attention before, especially because it's a new feeling. It's addicting, and it just lightens up the curiosity part of your brain. Like, oh, what if I can get that? I wonder how she looks naked. And then you start thinking all these thoughts because it's right there and you're not hardly having to make any effort. I'm speaking from experience because, again, you're right. When you're married and with your kids and you're so busy, you're too tired to make dinner at night, so you're getting takeout. You both tend to let yourselves go a little bit and get into this comfort space. And when somebody starts losing weight, in this case, I started losing weight because, I'm Hispanic and I don't want diabetes at 35 like everybody else in my life, in my family. We eat like shit, but we let ourselves go. I'm like, no, I don't want to end up that way. So I started working out. And I started getting attention from other women. I'm like, okay, I'm not like that. No. But my God, women who it's there's a lot of ridicule and a lot of hate. Well, men cheat, but nothing is really ever spoken about the women who are going for the married guy, because they're out there and they see that their safety, whatever the persona they see, whatever attracts them. There are a lot of women out there that see a married man and go after it. I guess it's a test. Yeah. It's a game to them, but I started getting so much attention, and just like any other man with, I caved eventually after a year or so.
There's a couple of theories as to why that is, and you're not the first to point that out, to say, I have a ring on my finger and suddenly women are flocking to me. Oh, yeah. Combined with newly looking better. Well, why is that? There's theory of this pre-selection, which is somebody already did the hard work to determine that this guy is worthy of marrying. Thank you. I'll take it from here kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And the second is this assured mutual destruction kind of thing. If she's a married woman and she's looking to do something outside of her marriage, she'll go to an also married person, man or woman, because they're not going to want to leave. I don't want to leave. We'll get together. They're more apt to keep the secret.
We both have something to lose, so I know he's not going to he's not going to say anything. Which don't play that game either, because sometimes when people fall in love, they're ready to implode everything. Oh yeah. So don't
the
do
other
that.
person's ready to, and then the other person comes and says, "Good news! I told my wife that I'm leaving her." Like, oh really?
Like what? Wait, what?
Well, I thought we'd talk about this first. I'm not ready for that.
Oh God.
You as you know, you enter into a world of drama when you go down that road of the infidelity. It's just I'm sure people get away with it for decades, but I don't know of anybody.
No, it always ends bad. It's like one of those mobster Scorsese movies. It's a great life, and then it just ends horribly at the end. You start getting the low
helicopters
montage
flying overhead, and
people getting busted and lives ruined, and divorces happening. But real quick, let's kind of rewind a little bit. And we talked about the cheating piece, dead bedroom, because I know there's a lot of men. I was in that space as well with a dead bedroom situation. And I'm going to ask you this question to see what your thoughts are, and then I want to go back to your ideas on how to resolve it. I had Caitlin V on my podcast a couple of weeks back, and she's a sexologist, and she's a big-time YouTuber, 500K follower. She has her own Discovery Plus show, and she reached out to me like, "Hey, I want to be on your podcast." Like, great, sure, that's one of the biggest gigs I've ever had. Yeah. So I brought up dead bedroom situation since she's an expert in that field. And she goes, "Okay, so let me understand the situation. You both love each other. Things are great. It's just there's no attraction in the bedroom, and like there's nothing going on, right?" And then I go, "Yeah, I get emails from men and women all the time asking how to resolve that." And she goes, "Well, I'm gonna throw this out there. Have sex outside your marriage. Have a consensual, monogamous, polyamorous relationship, and just have sex outside your marriage. People can try to be everything for their spouse, and sometimes you can, sometimes you cannot." But when you get to that point, 15 years into the marriage, and you've done absolutely everything, there's just nothing there, explore that option. She goes, "You'd be surprised how much that works for a lot of marriages, and it's spoken ill upon because it's a taboo solution, but it does work for a lot of people." And I thought back to my end of my marriage, the ex-wife had presented, "Hey, instead of getting divorced, let's have an open marriage." And I go, "Let me think about that." And I thought about it for a day. And then I thought, no, we are so in a bad place right now. Just throwing somebody else in this equation is going to just it's a chemical mixture for a bomb. So I don't recommend it. But you, Ralph, what are your thoughts on that as a possible option for some couples out there?
Well, I have two streams of thought here. One is that for me personally, no, thank you. My nature, my personality is such where I'm a pretty monogamous person. Okay. Once I'm in the relationship with this person one-on-one, I can't fathom bringing others into it at that level. Either. I'm sorry. So I think that's a very normal, innate feeling to have. I think I represent probably the majority in that. Jealousy is a thing for a reason. Yes. Because go out and have sexual relations with somebody else, a lot of people, I think, erroneously think, we can keep it simple. We can keep it as a technical thing. I'm getting my needs met with this person over here and done.
It's just the acts.
Sex is pretty complicated. There's a thing called pair bonding, which is I suddenly have feelings for this person. Men and women both feel this. So a lot of people think erroneously that's a very womanly thing. No, men, I can go out and exactly. And next thing you know, you're like, suddenly this my spouse at home suddenly doesn't look so shiny and pretty anymore, and suddenly it's not so attractive, and I don't look forward to coming home to them anymore, but I sure do like this one over here an awful lot. And I sure, so that's tough. In theory, what she was saying, the sexologist, makes sense. Marriage, it could be argued, kind of goes against our natural sexual makeup as human beings.
I believe
there is a school of thought, and I've done videos on this. And I'm friends with a psychologist who is a proponent of this, and I promote her stuff quite a bit. We've done online events together and stuff. Her name's Dr. Samantha Rodman-Whiten. She goes by Dr. Psych Mom. And there's also Esther Perel. Wednesday Martin is another author. And there's a bunch of female authors. Let's keep that in mind. Female authors that have pointed out when in the confines, and confine is the right word, of a monogamous long-term relationship, women will more often than not report, I'm just not that horny anymore. All things being equal, he could be the greatest guy in the world. I can look across and go, he looks good. He's handsome. I recognize he's a handsome dude. I recognize he's a sweet guy. He's the best father in the world. He does all the domestic stuff. So let's just get that out of the way. He's covered all the bases. He's checking every box there is. And if you sat that woman down and said, compare your libido, your sexual desire now to what it was when you were dating, when you two were in the early honeymoon phase, she would say, then it was a 10. Now it's a 1, 2 if I'm lucky.
Right.
You go to the dude and you say, honeymoon stage, 10. Now, 9.5.
Yeah, exactly.
Or just wired differently. So a lot of those books by your Esther Perel and stuff, they kind of take it to the next level of saying, if being a woman and sexual in a long-term relationship is important to you, you may want to look at this whole open marriage thing a little bit. You may want to look at this polyamory thing a little bit, because we women seem to be wired for that. We seem to get really bored when it comes to this monogamy thing. Now, of course, there's science behind that. There's something going on there. But is the ultimate resolution just go get your jollies met elsewhere, or are there things that you can do within the confines of your relationship to keep the spark alive?
And that takes us back to your tips.
And so I would say in my book, as far as from the man's perspective, there's things such as, and it seems so basic and simple, but a lot of men go, well, duh, why didn't I think of that? Which is, what did you do in the early stages of the relationship? I guarantee you've changed the old game plan up quite a bit after you got married, didn't you? And a lot of men swing the pendulum over to the provider side of things. They say, I'm dropping the whole lover side of things. That's the lover and the provider. I'm dropping that stuff. Who cares if I've gained 30 or 40 pounds? I'm a dad now. I'm a husband now.
Yeah.
What's that matter? It matters. I'm not flirtatious with other women or anything else. All other women are invisible to me. I don't care about any of that. La, 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 la. I'm not a sexual being anymore in that way. Well, that stuff... It's okay, in my opinion, to be a little open and flirty and fun with women. Don't take it to the next level. Have boundaries around yourself. But yes, other women exist, and other women find you attractive. That's called being an attractive human being. There's all kinds of things that I lay out in the book. And the physical fitness is probably the biggest section I have in the book. And it is one that a lot of men get offended by.
Ooh, really?
Very much so. I've had men stop there, read that section, and just go, don't like it. I don't like being told that I'm fat and gross. I don't like being told that this relationship is this shallow and stupid. Relationships are more than that. And you have, boiled it down to something as archaic and Neanderthal-like as looks. And I'm sorry, but I'm bigger than that. I've had a lot of men say, I'm a professor and I have all these PhDs and da-da-da-da-da. And I'm beyond going to the gym. And I say, Mother Nature doesn't give a shit about your PhD and your degrees.
Yeah.
What is it that made you attracted to your partner to begin with? It was, who's that woman over there? She's cute. And then she said, look at him. Well, who's that over there? And she elbowed her friend and said, who's that? Why? The physical. So that's why I spend so much, and not only that, but going to the gym and exerting yourself and everything. It solves a lot of problems with your anxiety and your health and your confidence in yourself and everything, the attention you get from others. And it's such a huge help. And that's why I start right with the book with that, as far as the solutions are concerned, and why I devote so much time to it. It's a game changer for so many guys in so many ways. And then there's a part of, we could go on and on about why this is, but there's very much the culture around marriages these days is the man and woman are on top of each other 24/7.
Yeah.
Like especially now we're working from home in these post-COVID days and everything else. And we do everything for the kids. We live for the kids 24/7, kids, mom, dad. And then everybody goes to bed and it's 10 o'clock at night and we're just exhausted and done. Yeah. And part of the solution is you need to get the hell out, dude, away from the family and away from the kids and do your own thing. God forbid. That was kind of a given for generations that dad's gone. Where's dad? Don't know. Mm-hmm. He's just gone. Hardware store. That's what my dad did. He went to the hardware store for like 4 hours. and he really was gone because I was with him sometimes. And sure enough, he'd be shooting the shit with the boys at the hardware store for 4 hours. Yeah. And but a lot of guys just don't do that anymore. Oh, I don't have time. I got to take my kid to soccer practice and I got to do this. No, you don't. Mm-hmm. You know, carve some time out for yourself. Be an independent dude with your own little mission, your own little whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. Something that is completely apart from the family unit. And so there's two things right there. You work on your physicality and work on your own independence away from the family. And those are huge things. If you think about it, they kind of tiptoe towards becoming a new you. And you're kind of tricking the system a little bit there because when we go back to those books that I mentioned where they say maybe you need to step outside of the marriage and get your needs met elsewhere. Well, what if your husband could become the new guy, so to speak? What if he could disappear and you introduce some of that healthy anxiety in the relationship? Like, where's my husband? What's he up to now? What's he doing? And well, he looks so. Where'd he get those pants? Where'd he get that shirt? And this is one of the funniest the phenomena that I see again and again. And I've had like Dr. Psych mom mentions this, Samantha Rodman Whiten. She will say until she's blue in the face, you know, that going to the gym and getting buff and looking your best and lean, mean, and that really doesn't matter to us moms and wives at all. It's silly. I mean, good for you, but it really doesn't matter to us. And I'm like, And then I asked this guy over here, so you lost 30 pounds, you hit the gym. What was life like before all that? And he says, well, I got laid maybe if I was lucky once or twice a month, maybe. How about after that? Well, I've been keeping track on a spreadsheet. We did it 16 times last month and the month before.
Exactly.
And if you ask that wife, she will deny, no, it has nothing to do with the fact of how he looks. It's nothing to do with him going to the gym. It has nothing to do with that. In fact, I don't like that he spends so much time away. I wish he would spend more time. And yet proof is in the pudding, so to speak. Here's Mr. Spreadsheet Man going, I don't know. I think I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. I think it's working.
Yeah, exactly. And if I can throw in that guys who are listening to this, we're not saying you have to have, a 300 six-pack chiseled bodies.
Exactly.
We're not saying that. I mean, just be the healthiest version of you and keep the weight off. I've said many times with my tips on anybody who's looking to get married, stay sexy for each other. You have to stay sexy for each other. If that means going to the gym individually or together, you have to keep that health in place because, again, guys, the bigger you get, that affects your blood pressure and that affects your erections. Yep. And if you get more fat down there, it's going to shrink the dick because you got a lot of fat and pudge. So it's like you want to stay in your physical peak. And overall, it's better for your health. And you have that constant confidence. And women who are listening to this as well, guys are visual. I know you hate hearing that, but it's the truth. If you let yourself go and, there's kids, we get that, there's going to be a period of the marriage where you're not going to look your best, right? We all go through that. But after the kids are more independent and can go to school, there's time for you to get back to where you were. And if you let yourself go, ladies, guys will leave you or cheat on you because guys are visual and you can be the greatest wife in the world. Just like Ralph said, you can be the greatest wife in the world, the wonderful mother, all this. But if there's no attraction there, a lot of guys won't be able to perform or maybe we'll go elsewhere because
and let me stop
that's
you
how
there.
we are.
A lot of women listen to that and they interpret that as he wants perfection.
No,
he wants me to look like the fitness models that I caught him looking at on Instagram. He want that chick on the movies, Wonder Woman, whatever her name is.
Yeah.
What's her? Yeah.
Anyway. Gail Godot. They blew. Yeah. Gail Godot. There you go.
Whatever. So I was like, no. And I did a video about this. We don't want perfection. We want effort because it just inflates our ego and makes us feel validated and so good that I have a woman that recognizes us as a unit is so important that she's actually putting effort into maintaining her sense of self, her sexiness, her appearance, whatever you want to call it, to keep us going.
Yes.
You know how freaking rare that is? That is sad that that's rare. That I got a woman going out the door going, I better go to my yoga class so I can stay sexy for my husband. Music to our ears. Oh my God. Holy shit. That is so rare. And it's sad that that's rare. And we don't want that woman to come back looking like, six pack, whatever. Mm-hmm. No, she just puts an effort. And also an effort into appearance of, dressing sexy and acting flirty and sexy and feminine and bubbly and sweet and all that. None of that is perfection. It's just effort.
Yeah. And I don't know if you've seen this trend on TikTok where daughters are turning their moms into them.
Yes.
Have you seen it's one of my favorite trends of 2022, and my God, some of the changes.
Some of those moms, geez.
My God, they're like gorgeous, but again, it's just they look one way. They have, I know,
Yeah.
like
what is that? That also illustrates that if they just turn the youthfulness factor up a few notches, just how much everybody goes, oh wow, look at that. Same woman,
and effort,
same body.
Effort, like you
all
said.
she does is just a little more revealing something, and you notice the demeanor of the mothers too when they march themselves out, all spunky and happy and twirling and everything else. And it's like that's what men love.
Yep, and that's how we are. And again, it's all effort. Just kind of reinforce your point. And I want to say this because I know this will maybe trigger some women, but what I was saying about if you just let yourself go and you're not putting any effort into your appearance, a guy will eventually go wayward because we need that physical beauty in front of us. I mean, whatever you were when we married, that's who we love. And I feel that both people, men and women, need to make that effort to stay physically fit in what they were for not only themselves, but to stay attractive to their spouse. And if any woman's listening to this, a man can still love you and cheat on you. He can still love you and cheat on you. Emotionally, he knows you're a wonderful mother, you're a wonderful wife, but he's just not physically attracted to you. And he needs that. Some men do need that. In my case, I can speak for myself. Like, yeah, I loved her, but again, I wasn't getting a need. And we're in a horrible place. Yeah. So that can happen. So despite what you're feeling and right now, it can happen.
And it may be, obviously I'm a little biased being a dude saying this, but it's my opinion and the opinion of a lot of researchers as well, that men tend to be able to, what's the word? They keep the love, devotion, friendship, all that stuff that goes along with the marriage. They're able to keep that at the marriage and get their physical need met elsewhere and keep the two separate. Going against what I said earlier, where jealousy is a thing for a reason, but men seem to be more wired to be able to keep the two worlds separate. And we've known this for generations. With the prostitution's the world's oldest profession for a reason, and and so women tend to be. This is why. If you have a wife who has stepped outside of the marriage and you discover that she had a physical affair with somebody, a lot of people, their knee-jerk reaction is, okay, lawyer up because it's over, dude. And I would say more often than not, they're probably right, because usually what coincides with that physical is also the emotional pair bonding and away they go. Well, men seem to have do a better job of keeping the two worlds separate. Not always, obviously. Yeah. But we all know of that dude friend of ours who you go on a business trip or something with him and he sneaks off with some woman. You're like, oh my God, I can't believe he went with, and he never talks to the woman ever again. Doesn't want to reach out to her or nothing. It was just a wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. And he's done. And he's back with his family.
Let me ask you this. We're older guys now, right? We've been there, done that. Back when I was younger, if I was on that same trip, like you just described, and I saw one of my friends hook up with a girl, I would have said nothing. Now, as I'm older, I would call him out. I wouldn't tell his wife. I'm like, but I'd say, what the fuck are you doing? Like, why are you doing this? I mean, you're married, man.
Nowadays I'd probably pull him aside and say, what's up? Yeah. What's up with this? Do you know what you're doing, dude? You know you're going to get caught. Yeah. That'd be my first thing. You know you're going to get caught. You don't get away with this shit. And
it all surfaces eventually. Someone, like you just said, a simple mistake is not logging out of a computer or forgetting to delete a text message. Some minuscule thing like that is going to implode your entire world. So why risk it, man? If you're that unhappy, just have the conversation with your wife. Hey, I need this from you, and I'll do what I can to work it. I'll go to counseling. Make an effort before going that route, and don't even go that route. I mean, just file and leave, because you don't want the consequences of that to surface. And then she goes on the social media tirade and calling you out as a cheater. Nowadays, especially on TikTok, we see that as well. You don't want to go down that route.
Yeah. It's tough.
It is tough.
It's tough for men to balance that innate physical need for that physical connection with a woman, sex, with the marriage. And when that goes down, I mean, like I've always said, this world of pornography, which is so huge right now. And I often joke that I have an infinite amount of pornography at my fingertips, so to speak, for absolutely free from now until the day I die. Yet men still pay for the stuff. They still get on your OnlyFans, and they still men are some horn dogs, dude. And the market is reacting to the need. The market is we recognize the need. Here's the product. Prostitution, same thing. Massage parlors, all this other stuff. They're all there, and there are some cultures where it is understood that the woman, especially post-menopause and stuff, that the sexy side of the relationship is done. And the women turn a blind eye to the fact that the man has a gumar or a girlfriend on the side, and it's just the way it's been for a lot of cultures for generations. This hypervigilance to monogamy is relatively new in the marriage world. There's been our grandparents and great grandparents had a thing going on, and they kind of sort of knew about it, but no one talked about it, kind of thing. It's in popular culture these days. It's very much unheard of.
They ignore that piece, but just acknowledge they were married 60 years. Oh, well, that's what we want. But do you really want that? Because they were miserable and they hated each other at the end.
Well, if we're going down a rabbit hole of we're going down a rabbit hole of what exactly is it that kept those couples together all those generations ago. And the more you look into it, the nastier it gets, because it really is. It's on the woman's perspective, it's because they had no choice. There was no options in life. They stuck it out, and they were miserable. They were unfulfilled, but they had their 2-3 kids in their house. They can't just pick up and leave. What are they going to do? There's no career. There'd be a social pariah. No one wants a single mother back then, and so forth. So they're stuck.
Yeah.
Now society has kind of made that shift a whole lot simpler, and voila! Oh my goodness, we have so many more divorces. I'm not saying that's good or bad; it just is.
Now, divorces. I'm glad you brought that up. We've seen the sound bites, the Kevin Samuel bites, and the Fresh Fit. Everyone loves stats, right? And they say, well, 80% of the time, women are the ones that file for divorce. And one, that may be true, right? Well, of course, that may be true. But I always rebuttal with, 80% of them may have filed, but I promise you, maybe of that 40% of those husbands were garbage and abusive. So they left them no choice but to file. So what do you expect? So it goes both ways. So so in your experience, I mean, have you seen that, or what do you think of that stat when you hear women file for divorce 80% of the time, so don't get married? Well, what does that tell you, being that we've been through that journey? Like, how do you respond to that?
I think it's a little bit more sinister in that we, especially amongst your more conservative religious types, we have this notion that getting married and having kids is a given. That was something that was always pushed on me as a kid. It's just what you do, And often when I hear
that's a great point. I never thought of it that way, but you're right.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but that's a
no. And I talk to these men that are in incredibly toxic relationships with a woman who, by virtue of hindsight being what it is, we look back and go, this woman's had problems from day one. What were you doing getting married to this woman and having kids with her? And they just say, that's what you do. No, that's what you do. She was my girlfriend. We were 18. We graduated high school. We're moving out of high school. Well, let's get married. We're going off to college together. Let's get married. We're done with the college. Let's get married. No one ever pulled these men aside and said, you don't have to. You can kind of play the field for a while. You can go through your whole 20s and 30s without getting hitched if you wanted to. You can wait till later. No one says that ever. So we have this cultural imperative for many of us it's just what you do. It's just what you just get married. Well, what we're learning is when you take down those boundaries around this construct of marriage and you make it easier to cut ties, I think a lot of people go, women especially, it seems, for whatever reason, go, maybe this isn't necessarily for me, at least not with that person. In other words, it's a long-winded way of saying, I personally don't think that marriage is for most of us. Boy, that's a terrible thing. A lot of people hear that and go, holy shit, dude. That's how ingrained this concept of the culture of marriage is in our society. To just say that makes people stand back and go, wow. No, I think it's for a relatively small portion of us.
I agree.
Because it takes a certain personality, skill set, and everything else to pull it off and make it work from now until the day you die. Because that's when I talk about marriage, that's what I mean. A lifelong commitment. Not a 5-year dump, go to the next one, another 5 years, dump them. That's not marriage. That's serial monogamy. Which I would pose that that's probably what the majority of us are wired for, which is you go through the honeymoon stage, you fall in love, you do everything else, you procreate with somebody, and then your eye starts wandering, and then you're like, let's just call it quits and go on to the next one. That seems to be what most of us are kind of naturally wired for, as horrible as that sounds.
And I would agree with you on that because again, I think based on your creed, culture, and how you were brought up and how you view love and marriage speaks a lot to your foundation and core values. So I think that has a lot to do with it. But when you start seeing kids who are grown up in single parent households, or maybe mom and dad were toxic, you're seeing a lot of people provided a horrible example of what marriage and a love foundation is and what should be. And I think, as you mentioned earlier, it kind of plays into how we view love and how we view marriages and such like that. So I truthfully believe that, but I believe social media also has done a lot of harm with giving people the idea of what marriage is supposed to be like. You see,
what it should be,
what it should be like, the couple looking beautiful on these trips and taking these photos and kissing on the beach and all this other bullshit. That's not marriage. That's just Instagram posts. That's maybe 1% of what it actually is like, but I think a lot of people, the reason why a lot of divorces happen, I think a lot of people tend to get married for the wrong reasons, for one, and don't understand what marriage is, two. Like I know too many people who, like you said, I'm just supposed to get married. You're supposed to go to college. You're supposed to find somebody in college and then get married in 25, start your career, have kids. Fuck that template. Fuck it. Just go do your own thing and just kind of do what makes you happy. Because I think people go in not understanding what they've walked into. And marriage is hard. There's in-laws that pass away. One of the hardest moments of my marriage was telling my 4-year-old daughter Nana died. And how my wife changed after the death. And I remember I was so insecure and stupid. I was actually angry that she changed. 6 months later, get over it. And I want my old wife back. I remember having animosity toward that. How stupid is that? And I'm calling myself out. That's how I felt, because I wasn't understanding of what all the events, because it's a lot of good things. You can play by the rules and go what you think you're supposed to do, and nothing's bad's going to happen. No, bad things will happen, and things change. And if you're not ready to adapt to that change, you're not ready for it.
Yeah. All of this, we're painting the picture of marriage being relatively hard, difficult, which it is. Yeah. And if that's the case, and we all know this, and I think if I would have asked any person in any generation, is marriage difficult? You'd probably, pull a guy aside and they would all probably say 100 out of 100 would go, yeah, it's tough, dude. Yeah. Well, then what's the push? What do you think society is pushing us in that direction so much culturally? Why? One thought is that marriage is best for the kids. Having a mom and dad under the roof is best for kids. And most of us have this physical and mental, I don't know, compulsion is the word, push to procreate. We just want to have kids, especially women. I'm getting close to 30. I got to have kids. The baby rabies.
That's a very real thing. As they say now, the wall.
When hitting the wall, as they say. So I'm getting close to that point. I got to procreate. It's almost my fertile moment is almost over. So I can understand that. And then we marry with that. Okay, since we want to have kids so badly, what's the best way to raise these kids? Well, we need a mom and dad under the same roof. Cool, we have that. Plus, a more interesting and insidious way of looking at it is marriage also keeps us in line, especially men. If you got a guy who I've talked to these men, I know these men, without the construct of marriage, they would never see a naked woman. As sad as that. So we have those men. I never thought of it that way. So we have to. We've seen in very bad ways what happens to those men when they're cast aside by society. These untouchables. These what's the term they use? Incels.
Yeah.
You've heard of this, involuntary celibate guys. The guys that we keep dangling the carrot in front of these guys saying, you know, the key to your happiness is relationships and women and sex and everything else. And they never can, and they never can get it.
Yeah.
It's always out of reach. And what happens is that those men end up going into a school with a gun and into a shopping mall or mowing down a bunch of people with their cars. So we recognize, I think for generations ago, they recognize we got to keep these dudes in line. Here's your woman. You know, please don't go around destroying society. Here you go. So that keeps those men in line. It also keeps men in line who go around banging women left and right and leaving babies everywhere. You know, that's not good for society either. Please don't do that. Here's your one woman. Stick with this one woman from now until the day you die. Society overall benefits. And then there's the economic benefits. You know, you get a man and woman together, they end up spending a hell of a lot more money than, you know, there was a meme that went around that showed this is a single apartment of a guy who doesn't have a woman. And it just showed, the woman posted on Twitter something saying, single men live like this and they honestly see nothing wrong with it. And it was like a recliner in front of a TV in an empty room, and that was it.
And a PlayStation, that's all we need.
And men were all like, yeah, that looks awesome. It looks perfect. And without marriage, I think that's probably like 90% of dudes. And so there goes the furniture industry. There goes this industry, the appliance. We don't need any of that shit. Very big. Women are the chief spending officers within the relationship. And so there's economic, there's the children, there's the keeping men in line. It could be argued keeps women in line as well. Instead of going out and making babies with everybody, here's your one man. So I can see the push, and I can see why, you know, conservatism in general is basically, conservatives are saying, we have all this shit figured out. You don't have to go and try and recreate the wheel. We got it, you know, quit trying to go out and adjust and change and do it. You're just causing chaos everywhere you're going. Man, woman, get married, have kids, and shut the F up. That's basically it. Well, the problem is that doesn't work from what I've seen for the majority of us. We can try to shoehorn ourselves into that and try like hell to make it work and say, I think I'm one of the chosen ones that can make it work. And this half of us go, oh, fuck, that ended horribly. Who saw that coming? Well, if you stop and really look at the situation, anybody saw it coming. You pick this person with all this toxic baggage. You have all this toxic baggage. You put you two together and voila, of course you have problems. And then that's a generational thing, because guess what your kids are going to do? And guess what their kids are going to do? Yeah, it's just a shit show. Yeah.
Let me ask you this. You mentioned the conservative approach and like how the marriage should look and be. I will rebuttal with, let me ask you, that's not a rebuttal. Let me ask you this. At 45, I've known over 25, maybe 30 couples who've gotten married. All since my teenage years till now, right? Almost 98% of them are divorced.
Oh, wow.
I cannot give you, maybe there's one good example of a marriage that they're happy. But I can't give you up more than that. In not without going into like my mom and dad, and they were married 42 years and my dad just passed, but you know, it wasn't a pretty marriage in the 80s, right? But I can't name one couple my age that is happily married and they're doing great. And I look at them and say, you know what? That's the model I want my marriage to look like. Do you have any like references in your life? Maybe you do. I mean, you're married now. I mean, outside of your own, but do you see other couples like, that they're a wonderful marriage? That's what it should be. Because I've never seen it.
Yeah, I know a handful of them, but you're right. The majority of them, you just kind of sit back and go, Jesus. But yeah, I know a couple.
Yeah, well, that's good. I mean, because I think people, if they saw more of that, maybe thoughts on marriage wouldn't be a certain way. Because right now, there's the MGTOW, men going on their own, which is, I think, tied. I don't know the definition, you know, Webster's dictionary, but I don't know if it's tied to incels, but men more or less are seeing that marriage in itself as a structure, there's no benefit to us if it doesn't work out. So they want to change the rules, the court laws, and all those other items. And then I guess come back when they change and then re-meet women. I don't know. Is that the plan? I don't know. They're going to go to an island or somewhere. Yeah. I don't know. But what are your thoughts on the MGTOW movement with men?
I did a little video about it where I often speak in like analogies, metaphors, what the proper term is. But it's kind of like this. I say, pretend there's a guy that goes to a party And he's at the party and he goes, man, and he had really high hopes for this party. And he wants to go have fun and meet new chicks. And he goes and he's like, man, the food sucks. The people suck. The conversation sucks. And he goes out the front door. And before he leaves, he turns to everybody and says, your party really sucks. And he points out everything that sucks. And he goes, I'm out of here. Bye. And slams the door. Mm-hmm. And then he comes back again and knocks on the door and they go, yeah. And he goes, and another thing. And he says, I said in my little story that I went to your bathroom and the towels in your bathroom suck. And the kitchen, you have cheap food and your wine sucks. And he leaves and he keeps coming back. That's what I see with these MGTOW guys is there's a phrase from Shakespeare, doth protest too much, which means you're going on and on about this, which is showing that under the surface, you're really bothered by the fact that this party, the marriage, whatever, didn't quite go the way you wanted it to. Yeah. And, or you weren't invited to the party for some of these guys. Or if the MGTOW movement, I think, were to get legs and really be more positive, it would be that they would say, you know what, the marriage thing, good for some of you. I hope you can make it work, but I'm going to go over here and do this and lead a positive single life of whatever, be fruitful, be...
Yes.
Whatever you want to call it. Date. If they date, they date. If not, they don't, but they're still happy. But instead, as they keep coming back to the party of the marriage, so to speak, and going, and another thing. And they can't shut the fuck up about it. Nope. And I go, guys, you're doing this all wrong. As a marketing dude, the message is just, it's all squirrely. This ain't going to work. You can't keep, you're just, doth protest too much. You're showing your hand too much. You're showing that you're just, you're hurt.
Bitter. You're bitter and hurt, angry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the word. And which I understand. For a lot of these guys, they feel left out by society. The society's just giving them a big middle finger. Some of them, it was I was married and blah, 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 and cheated on and divorced, and now I barely see my kids, and I lost 80% of my money. Well, shit, who wouldn't be bitter after that? Mm-hmm. And so instead of saying, I'm going to go do my own thing and stuff, they keep coming back to the rest of us, some of which are perfectly happily married, saying, look at you, what's the term? Chump, a simp. Look at you.
Yeah, the simp
is what they say. You're a simp being married thinking this is going to last. I'm sure your wife's cheating on you with 4 different men and everything else. They're just very angry, bitter dudes. I guess in concept, I get it. Especially when listening to some of these stories. I'm like, shit, who wouldn't be a MGTOW, go your own way type of dude? But the message and the method in which they get it across is all wrong, I think.
I couldn't agree more, but it speaks volumes when, again, there are those horror stories, right? Men were just screwed over, whatever. But then you have you and I, who were heartbroken, and I don't go into too much detail with my divorce, but the ex-wife wasn't an angel, and we went through horrible events, lost everything, and came back better men. So if it's there's something there. You can either use that horrible event, that loss, and use it as a metamorphosis of something greater, like the phoenix rising from it, or you can just dwell in self-pity and loathing and have that anger toward your ex-spouse. And maybe she did cheat on you. And you know what? You didn't deserve it. I'm sorry that happened, but you got to move the fuck on, dude. And maybe do a little self-analysis and say, was I a good husband? Was I attentive? Because maybe you think you were, but maybe you weren't. And just take that experience and learn from it. And I think that with the MGTOW and maybe the incel, I know that's another dynamic, but in the same ballpark. I get the hatred. I get that. But you got to look into yourself, man. The world doesn't owe you shit. It doesn't owe you a damn thing. You have to go and earn it. And that's through change. And if you're the same person you were as a kid or 20, and now you're 35 and still thinking the same way, guess what? You haven't evolved and changed your mindset. You always got to learn new things and change who you are. And if you're not doing that, you're just destined to fail, man.
More to that point, there is a disturbing statistic that came out from OkCupid, the dating website. Yeah. They published all kinds of really cool data, and they had a blog about it, and they had since taken it down. I guess it was a little bit too controversial because they showed some not so good stuff behind the scenes about the online dating landscape. And one of them was they were able to determine who was considered to be attractive by the amount of interactions and views on your profiles and stuff. And when you looked at the span of, or the plot points, if you will, the chart showing what women were attractive, it was what you would expect, was the normal distribution, the parabola, which shows most are in the average category, and then we have the small tail of super attractive and super unattractive. And then you looked at the men, and you're like, oh, Jesus Christ. I think it was 80 some odd % were considered below average in attractiveness, according to women.
Okay.
So women say the vast majority of men in online dating are not attractive, not worthy of my time. While men say most women are average and what you would expect. So a lot of men go, Jesus, why even try then?
Yeah.
Right off the bat, the chances are I'm unattractive in the eyes of most women in online dating, for example. Well, that's terrible.
Did you try, or you just didn't try because of what you read?
Bingo. So do you take that information and you have the winner mentality, kind of a winner loser if we want to break it down and make it, super simple. The winner mentality of, well, looks like I got my work cut out for me. Let's get to it. What is it I can do to join the top 20? Or do you do what a lot of men do, which is, fuck it. This is just one of several things that have told me in a roundabout way. Just bow out of the game, dude. Just step away. It ain't worth it. Which I'm like, fine, then get the hell out of the way if that's your stance. But what I've seen is they don't necessarily get out of the way. They stand their ground and piss and moan a lot about this. Basically, is what I'm seeing about how it's not fair. Yeah, it's called life. Life's not fair. Yeah. There's the old Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, where the 20% of people within a certain whatever it may be, any kind of shit. You play sports and you put a team of 5 versus 5 in basketball. Most of the time you go, there's usually like 2 guys that stick out from the rest, and the rest are kind of but there's always 2 superstars on the court that get all the points and all the rebounds. That's life in general. We notice that with the economy, with sports, with dating, whatever it may be. And the of that basketball analogy, of the 8 that aren't very good, what percentage of those will go, well, I guess I better practice a little harder. I guess I better show up a little earlier to the gym and do more drills and shoot more free throws and everything else, while the rest just go, fuck it, I'm never going to play anyway. I'll just be sitting on the bench. Who cares?
Here's my Jersey coach. I'm quit. It's like, come on. I love that analogy. Like you said, going back to, you said, like, guys, I'm not even going to try because 80% of men, quote unquote, are unattractive to women. Instead of thinking, fuck it, forget it, I'm just not even going to try. How about saying, okay, well, dating apps may not be the best platform, so I'm going to work on my personality and meet people organically, like old school.
Yeah, why not?
Why not? If you're going to think that way, but to kind of go back to that point, I did a live on my YouTube channel where my old Match account, it's still not active, but I can still log in and check things out. So what I did is I pretended I was a woman and started filtering for men, and I had a bunch of women on my live. And I go, let me evaluate some men's profiles. And the video's still up if you want to check it out. I'll tag it in the link below.
Yeah.
And 80%, I'd say, of the men's profiles were garbage.
Oh, sure.
They had lazy photos, which were just selfies they took all wearing the same shirt, like they just took it that day in front of the mirror. And grammatically, the profiles were just horrible. Some came out with a tonality being like bitter and angry. And I deserve this and that. This is what I want. Don't waste my time. If you think of yourself as an Amazon product, guys, if you're going to go into profile, any app, take some great pictures, highlight your best features. If you have a great smile, women love a smile, and put your personality on paper. Try to make them laugh. Do something that helps you stand out. Because if you put zero effort on your profile, you're not going to get no results, especially with the amount of availability in men out there. So you got to do your best to be the best you and presenting yourself in the best light. And a lot of them weren't doing that. So when I hear that stat, based on my experience and what I've saw going on Match.com, it makes sense because they're not making efforts. They think, well, I'm a nice guy. They'll see that. No, motherfucker, you got to go put the best you out there, man. Put some effort in your photos. So
to the point of I'm a nice guy. Did a video on this recently where I say so many guys, especially post-divorce, been with this woman 15, 20 years. Now I'm suddenly divorced and now I'm out in the single world. They bring that married relationship dad energy out into the dating world where it does not belong at all.
Yeah, you can't do that.
I'm a great sweet guy provider. And the women are like, cool, but what else you got? And the guy's like, what do you mean? What else do I got? I'm a great sweet guy provider. Isn't that worth something? And I've talked to these dudes who say, they comment on my videos and stuff saying, it's been 3 years in online dating and I've gotten exactly 0 out of it. Well, dude, I think 3 years of data is enough to show you're putting a product on the market and the market is responding with a big fat yawn. It's time to change the product up a little bit, don't you think?
God, makes sense. I mean, if you go 3 months, like they have subscriptions, right? You buy 3 months worth, $80, whatever it was back in the day. No hits. Okay, what went wrong? Let's do an audit. Just take a look and see what we can do to change it up. But I don't know. It's a very tired mindset with a lot of these young men, which it astonishes me sometimes, because I remember I first saw it in the dating world when I went out. I had no friends. I'm meeting all these new people, and I met a lot of guys who were very wishy-washy or pushovers, and there was not a lot of masculinity out there. And when I hear men not wanting to try, young men, I guess it kind of correlates and makes sense. I just don't know what the difference is between generations, and I know that can go another hour. But I do see a lot of men who aren't willing to fight for it. I'm getting angry, like Rocky, man. Fight for it. If you want it, go get it. It's right there. If you know what you're worth, go get what you're worth. Just go get it. But a lot of them are willing to try. It just blows my mind. Sorry, I yelled at you.
No, no, I get it completely. Now,
it's frustrating.
In the defense of some of these guys, though, they've been shit on so much by life in general that they look at what's the end game. The common phrase is the juice worth the squeeze, right?
I've never heard that phrase. I'm going to write that down.
Is the juice worth the squeeze? Meaning, if I put in all this work, let's say there's a guy who's like, I got to lose weight, and my career sucks. I'm a garbage man. No offense to garbage men, but I want to get a better career, and he creates this objectively better, attractive version of himself. Yes. In a lot of these guys' minds, then what? Now I'm attracting what exactly? And they look at the pool of available women candidates and they say, oof, I don't think so. Mm-hmm. Some of these guys live in pretty terrible areas, and maybe their population of available candidates is relatively low. You live in a major metropolitan area. You don't have to deal with that. But I know some guys, I live in a town of 200 people. Like, yeah, Jesus Christ, good luck, dude. So
move.
They got a point.
Yeah, I do. At some situation, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's it. Go ahead.
Yeah, some situations are dire, and I'll pivot to that and say, you know what? Every problem, there's a solution. I've met many women on TikTok that do the same thing, and they live in towns where what they're looking for is not there, so they're flying to meet other people. They're taking weekend trips to meet some people for weekend dates. So there's always an option. There's always other things you can explore. And if your town is only 200 people, consider moving. Maybe do that. Because is that where you would want to raise a family? I mean, think long term. Go ahead.
TikTok sent me down a rabbit hole of there's this whole world of men, young men too, and right away you think probably not very attractive, socially awkward men. No, these were attractive, youngish men who have, by their estimation, have discovered that the pool of female candidates for dating is way better in places like Colombia and Thailand.
Passport bros or something like that.
Thank you, passport bros. That's what they call themselves. Mm-hmm. And so you watch this, and there's something to that. And I'm a child of a European, and my wife is from Europe and stuff, so we have an international flair. And we've been to, just this past summer, we did a European tour.
Very nice.
Yeah, for you guys that are stuck in the middle of nowhere, get the hell out and go out and see the world. Mm-hmm. That has a bit of a stigma of these sex-starved men going out to prey on these third world women, and let that go in one ear out the other. There's so many different cultures out there and different women and different whatever. Just see and explore it all.
Yeah. And I laugh when I see that, because what they're forgetting is that, okay, if you had a horrible dating experience with modern women in your space your entire life, guess what? Going to another country, the problems is you. No matter where you go in the world, you're still the problem. So if you didn't have success in one country, you may have better success, but you're still you. And you're coming off as very entitled, and I deserve this, so I couldn't find what I want. The U.S. couldn't give you a woman, so you're going to another country. That's what you're fucking doing, man. Come on.
We're a pretty diverse population here in the U.S.
It blows my mind.
But there is the point of, and boy, this is a good segue into talking about your video and mine, where we did the little experiments.
Yes.
There is the mindset of the, quote, Western woman, which is a way overused term, whatever that means, being very entitled. And why put in work into the relationship? Why put an effort into making myself a better woman, girlfriend, wife, whatever it may be? Mm-hmm. I'm the woman, I'm the prize. I think there's something to that. I think that notion didn't come out of nowhere. And I think these men see that more so in the United States, for example, than they go to a place like Colombia, where they simply get off the plane, go to some random cafe, and, you know, 2 pretty girls come up and start chatting them up. And they're not prostitutes. They're just normal girls. And
Beautiful
what
women,
the hell is this all about? And they're beautiful. And they treat them like a normal person. And they don't act entitled. And these men are like, this is extremely attractive. I like this. So they got a point. I can totally see where they're coming from.
Yeah.
My wife is European, but she's German. They're not the most warm people. but she does have a different sensibility about her, for sure. And she'll be the first to tell you, and she's been on my podcast before, where she says she's kind of scared of American women. She says, boy, there's some tough women, and they're very much, she's had some women, her friends tell her, point blank, no, I don't perform oral sex. Why would I do that? And my wife's like, really? And they're like, oh yeah, no, I don't. No. So there's some kind of cultural thing there. I don't know what it is. And we can start talking a little bit about that and what we both found. And I'm not quite sure how to interpret it. If it's accountability is the term, if lack of effort is the term, or what it is.
Okay. Well, that's a good one. We'll end the podcast with this topic because it's a great one. And it both gave us a lot of hits and recognition. I think my last video, at 4 million views is what it was. So the experiment was this, cheating. Why I created 2 videos, why your husband cheats and why your wives cheat. And I posted them the same day, the same background, the same reasons. And the reasons, from what I recall, was you let yourself go. The other one is you weren't making an effort, but more or less all 4 reasons were the same one, just changing from man to woman. That's all I did. And I wanted to see what the response was. And the video went viral. I was tagged, I was stitched, I was called like an enabler of cheating. How dare you, blah, blah, blah. So a lot of women hated me. And that particular video, Why Your Husbands Cheat, I think it shot up to 1 million, while the Why Your Wives Cheat only got 200K views. And the response from the women, again, was hate and like, well, if he's not happy, he can leave, you know. And I'm like, wow, you're not really making efforts. I mean, what if he hasn't cheated on you yet and he just wants to try new things and you don't want to do it? Like, no, he can, if he's not happy, he can go. While the men were saying, wow, thank you for the insight, Rudy. I learned a lot. I'm going to be a better husband to my wife. Thank you for the insight, giving me the heads up before something bad happened. So that shocked me. I saw men saying, wow, taking accountability. Granted, they haven't done nothing wrong yet, but they acknowledge that, hey, I'm on this path. I better do something before she goes wayward because I love her. While millions and millions of women were stitching and just spewing hate and saying, you know, men are this, they can leave. That was the results of my experiment. And you did the same thing. You were inspired by that. And what was your experiment about?
Mine was, and I will admit right off the bat before people jump all over me, it was a relatively flawed experiment. This isn't a scientific, published in the Journal of American Medicine kind of thing here. So this was TikTok, Jesus Christ. But basically I posed the question of if your significant other came up to you and said, I'm no longer physically attracted to you, how would you respond? Now, I worded it differently for both because at first I made them exactly the same to put you behind the scenes a little bit. And then I looked at it and I said, I know what's going to freaking happen. Is everybody's going to say, no one would talk to a woman like that. That's not very realistic. You need to soften it a bit. And so I did. And I put up front of the woman's wife, you're my best friend in the whole world. You're an excellent mother. I love you to death. But, and then I put this in there, which I said, ever since the baby came into the picture, you've gained a ton of weight. And I'm no longer physically attracted to you. I'm sorry. And women jumped all over that. Ever since I had the baby, excuse me, they got a point. That's a touchy point, but guess what? It's also realistic. And I mentioned in a follow-up video, obesity is a problem, especially here in the States. And if you were to poll the majority of women who are obese and say, when did your problem start? They'd say, after having a baby. It was very tough physically, hormonally, mentally, blah, blah, blah. And 20 pounds became 30, became 40, became 100 pounds. It happens. And for men, I obviously left out the baby part because men don't have babies. But I did say, I didn't also up front say anything nice. I just said, you've gained a lot of weight. I think I did put in there, I'm worried about your health, but I'm no longer physically attracted to you. I'm sorry. This is what you're showing me is not attractive. So the results were much like what you showed. It was I don't have the numbers here in front of me, but 80 some odd % of the men's response was positive in nature, which is, well, I guess I better get to work on my appearance. Thanks for bringing it up. Hurts, but hey, it is what it is. Right. While something like 93% or something like that of the women's response was negative, which was, all right, time to divorce.
Wow.
Go F yourself. I had a kid. This is what happens when you have a kid. You can gain weight. You know, if you can't live with it, then F you. Some of the most interesting responses were, I would lose a bunch of weight and then I would divorce him. Which I thought, boy, that's telling, isn't it?
That is sad, to be honest.
Sad.
Wow, to have that mentality. That's a long-term vindictive plan.
I would lose a bunch of weight and then dump him. A lot of women came back with, I would respond with, sure, you go ahead and take the baby and the housework and everything else. I'll go to the gym for a couple hours. And yeah, let's see how that works out. To which I went, I think majority of men that I know would say, cool, have at it.
Go, babe.
See you in a couple hours. And so I actually made a follow-up video and polled the men and said, if that happened, what would your response be? Like 97% of the men would be supportive of it. They say, yeah, go.
Yeah.
So I think there's not a lot of, I think it's a lot, that's what's the term? The women are deflecting there. They're saying they're putting the onus on the men, saying he would never support my. Yes, he would. Of course, he would. Yes. So the question then is, what are we seeing here? Is it a societal, a cultural thing where women are being told you really don't have to work? The fact that you said I do and gave birth to a child, job done, sweetheart. You know,
that's it. Yeah,
relax. You know, I say relax, but you got a lot of work ahead of you as far as being a mother and everything else is concerned. But as far as effort is concerned of maintaining appearance and being an attractive spouse and doing the work on you as a couple, don't sweat it. You know, leave it up to the dude. That's his job now.
Yeah.
And that, excuse my language, that fucking sucks. And that's no bueno. And I'm going to do a follow-up video with my wife here soon where I'm going to ask her what she thinks about that. And she'll tell you that she's dumbfounded by a lot of women that come with that my job is done as soon as I say I do kind of mentality. It's awful. Now, men aren't, you know, we're not perfect. I know plenty of men that do the same damn thing. I had one guy who I wrote about it in my book who said, I saw you at the gym lifting weights. That was pretty impressive. And I started going into a spiel about, yeah, I started lifting a few years ago and blah, blah, blah. And he cut me off and said, well, I don't have to do that shit anymore. I'm married. And I thought that right there is the perfect encapsulation of the mindset of a lot of men. But what we see is that when you put the mirror in front of the men and say, you got a problem and I'm losing attraction to you, mister, do something about it. Majority of men hop to attention and say, okay, let's go to the gym. It is. Don't want to lose my wife. Don't want to lose my family. On the other hand, the women say, go F yourself.
It is dumbfounding. It shocked me that no one was willing to try or fight for their marriage. Like, no, I'd say 98% of the women were just, he can leave, fucking bye, I'm gone. And only a few, and I highlighted it in the video, the results video, where it's like, well, I love my man. Thank you for letting me know this. I'm going to stay in shape for him. I'm going to do my best to keep him happy. So again, that 3% of women, there's still women out there who have that mentality, but the majority, it just blows my mind that one and done. Okay, if he's not happy, he can leave. No one wants to fight for it. And I think that just kind of reinforces a lot of what men, like, why bother? Why try if that's the way a lot of women think? And I just kind of reinforce them and say, like, hey, there are good women out there. Like, for example, my girlfriend right now, she just had a baby November 15th. And, how Google sends like, hey, this is what happened last year, and you get these memories. I sent her some photos. Hey, this was us last Christmas. And she says, don't worry, babe, I'm going to look good again for you. I'm going to look good again. I'm going to repeat this. Don't worry, babe, I'm going to look good again for you, is what she said. And I didn't insinuate that. I just said, hey, this happened last year. But she goes, I'm going to look good for you. I remember what you told me about your first marriage. I'm not going to be that way. No, I'm going to be your love witch, is what I nickname her, my love witch. Yeah. So she wants to make an effort. It's a movie. She looks like one of the characters in the movie. Google it later. But she wants to stay sexy for me. And I'll go, that's the woman you want. Because she knows what's important to me, especially at my age. And she knows what I like. And I'm going to do the same vice versa. And that's why I know we're going to be great together. Because I would have never thought a woman would tell me that before.
the opposite of that would have been the woman. When you send that picture, she would have said, "Why are you sending me this picture? Are you trying to make me feel bad?"
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. And so where does that come from? Is it going back to our earlier in the conversation? I can put a very bland, generic, average woman profile up on online dating and get 1,000 likes or messages or whatever they do in the online dating these days. Mm-hmm. And that woman will be like, "Oh, hot damn, I'm a prize here. I got options." Versus the most average bland dude won't get anything. So that's just the nature of the beast. That's never going to change. Women are the prize when it comes to the mating game, if you want to call it that. So women, I guess, innately know that, oh, he doesn't like me? Well, guess what? I could open my front door and say, "Who wants this?" And some dude's going to come running. That's how much of a, quote, prize I am as a woman. And the ancillary to that is also, for a lot of those women, they look over to the man and go, "Who the hell are you to request any kind of demand out of me? I mean, look at you, dude. You know, your career's not the best. You don't look the best. And I could drop you at any singles bar anywhere and you're going to come home alone. I don't have to worry about a damn thing." So you're working with those two things, and you got to get a picture for why those women are so quick to go, "Well, go after yourself."
Yeah. Yeah. It's, like you said, just kind of, I guess, close this out. As you hit it right, the nail on the head when you said marriage isn't for everybody. It's for a small percentage. And I just hope that anybody who's listening to this who's engaged or looking to get married, you really take what Ralph and I said to heart, because again, we've been there, we've done that. No one gets married to fail and get divorced. You know, we went in there to stay there forever. We both did. And it didn't work out. But again, it worked out for the best for us in the end. But take these lessons to heart. And again, understand that marriage is life is hard enough as it is by yourself. You know, we understand on our own life is hard. Now you're going to have another life in there, but not just her, but her parents. You're getting involved with the family. Life is not easy. So you got to fight for it. But again, there's a maturity level that you need and a lot of upfront, honest discussions with your spouse at the very beginning before you even consider putting a ring on that person. Because if you don't have those discussions up front, they'll eventually will come up in the marriage, man. But
exactly right.
But again, Ralph, man, this was, I forgot we're like an hour and 30 minutes. I thought we're going to be here an hour. So it just flew by, man. We can go on like all day, but tell everybody where they can find you and your programs, and we'll end it there.
dadstartingover.com is the website, kind of hub for everything, but you can find me on all the social media, TikTok, YouTube, elsewhere. Facebook is really big. I got like 80-some thousand followers on there.
Nice.
Just look for Dad Starting Over and you'll see all that. And we do, like I talked about, the live events with Dr. Psych Mom, the DSO Fraternity, my books, all kinds of cool stuff.
Awesome. Well, Ralph, Mr. AKA DSO, thank you so much. This was an absolute blast, brother. And we got to do this again.
Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.